For this cause also thank we God without ceasing. Because when ye received the word of God which ye heard of us, ye received it not as the word of men, but as it is in truth the word of God, which effectually worketh also in you that believe. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio, and this is the 29th installment, I believe, of our Genesis Revisited series, and I'm joined once again by my good friend and co-host, Rob Skiba. Rob, are you there, brother?
I'm here, Zen. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It's been a really blessed day and week, and looking forward to moving towards spring already. The rose bush outside of my house has buddings on it, and so I can tell we're getting closer, even though it's still cold. The days are getting longer, and we are moving towards the equinox. So, really excited. How about you?
Yeah, real good. Just to put some things in perspective based on our previous shows regarding crypto, uh, we've talked about how like Bitcoin was 3 years ago was $1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been between 30 and 42,000 in the last
Mm-hmm.
several months. And so, with everything that's going on geopolitically and everything, Sheila and I are considering at the moment. We're just going through the thought process of getting out of the city. And
Right
so
on.
I started looking for land, and we found a gorgeous place today. Unfortunately it's too far away. It's just way too far away for our lifestyle and the family and people that we want to be around and airports and everything else that we want to be next to. But just to put things in perspective, I found a gorgeous 6-acre plot of land for the price of 1 Bitcoin, right
Nice.
right on the shore of this massive lake reservoir.
Awesome. That
It's
is
high ground.
awesome.
It's high ground on the lake. For now, put into perspective, just so people can understand what we've been trying to say all along, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, whatever you get in at, crypto's just going up. So
Right.
I got in at $1,000, only got a couple of Bitcoin. So I'm thinking, okay, this plot of land currently with the price of Bitcoin today, I paid $1,000 for. So I could take that 1 Bitcoin today, 3 years later, go buy, theoretically, I could go buy this gorgeous 6-acre plot of land on a lake for my forever retirement
Yes.
home for $1,000 of my investment. You know what I mean?
Dreams come true, man.
Well, that's what we're trying to say. Is like we're not saying it just for the
Exactly.
sake of, hey, let's try to get rich quick or anything, although
No,
that's
no.
somewhat possible compared to other things that you might want to.
Absolutely. Potential is there.
But when people want to talk about, oh, well, you just need food and land in it. Well, guess what that costs? That costs money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put your
Exactly.
money into something that can give you a huge return, then
Yes.
later, here 3 years later, I am now looking at the possibility. At least this was something, I started looking a little bit over the weekend and over the last couple of days, just kind of looking around online, what's available out there. So we saw a plot of land online, it looked pretty cool, and then Sheila and I went out and drove out there to check it out. And I'm standing there going, you realize if we actually bought this place, it would have cost me $1,000.
Yes. What a blessing.
Unfortunately it's too far away. I'm like, oh, so now I got to try to find something a little closer. But anyway, it was fun to go through the exercise, of
Yeah.
thinking and dreaming, seeing
Yes.
what's
Absolutely.
possible.
Right. Yeah. It's like I told that whole story of the woman that had sold all the different paintings that she was making for individuals, and this one guy contacted her and had her paint a Bitcoin, and she did so, and he encouraged her to open up a cryptocurrency wallet way back in 2013, and she
Oh,
didn't know what a Bitcoin was, or how much it was, or how to set up a wallet, but he told her, and she went through the motions and then forgot about it. And then, now that Bitcoin had reached all time highs and everything, she went to find out if she still had that account and access to it, and sure enough, and she checked it, and yeah, she found out she was Bitcoin rich just from doing
Wow.
that one drawing of a Bitcoin, years and years ago, and it being worth, 30 some thousand dollars now. She was, blown away. And so,
How you doing?
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
yeah, the potential, that's all we're
that's the
trying to teach
yep.
people. The potential, the possibility, and that it could benefit you, especially when so many people are struggling, living, check to check, or are losing their jobs. I mean, even putting, if you can, portion of your stimulus away. Like we talked about how the last one, that $1,200 stimulus check was worth $4,800 just a few months later if you had put it in to Bitcoin, which a lot of people did. And there was articles about that as well. And so, yes, that's all we're trying to show people. And it's not about getting rich. It's about, learning something that could benefit you and your children going forward, especially when you consider that less than 1% of the world's population even knows what Bitcoin is or even is involved in the cryptocurrency space. And now, PayPal just came out how they made a killing last quarter because of the offering of
Mm.
crypto, and then Square, and Cash App, these other platforms are allowing people to purchase cryptocurrency, and it's benefiting these companies. And also, it's got more and more people involved in the cryptocurrency space. And I don't know if you heard this, but Michael Saylor, the guy that had invested a lot of his own wealth and that of his company's MicroStrategy, he had been buying Bitcoin since it was 19,000 and ended up making 300 million just this year on Bitcoin. But
Wow.
anyways, he had a conference yesterday, and it was booked by all these corporations and people that have high net value, and they were learning about how to get involved with owning and holding and retaining cryptocurrencies. And so that's also exciting for the space.
It is exciting. Again, you can, as we say, lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink it. It's like, and the thing is, you can get even just a fraction of it and just see what happens. Yeah, you can't afford $30,000 for one Bitcoin today, but maybe you can put 1,000 away and see what happens. I couldn't afford a whole lot 3 years ago. I just can't afford a lot today either. But 3 years ago, when it was $1,000, yeah, why not? See what happens. Well, here it is 3 years later. And now I'm thinking, wow, I could get some pretty decent land somewhere. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. It's absolutely amazing. And also, I've been telling people, and we'll move off of this subject really
Yeah.
soon, but I've been doing a show on crypto and teaching people about how you can just have your money in cryptocurrency and earn interest. As simple as that, just having a return on your money instead of allowing banks to charge you to hold it and then allowing them to make money off of your money. It
Right.
doesn't make any sense. So,
Yeah, exactly. On another side of things, you saw the trailer or the
oh
teaser for Seed.
man, awesome, brother. I am really excited. And when you see the trailer, I literally thought it was better than Avatar and a
Wow.
lot of, even a lot of, the animation series and stuff. I mean, it was excellent. It was most incredibly done. The colors were fluid and vibrant, and then the story as well. And I had read your script a long time ago, but actually seeing it put
Yeah.
into action and watching the series unfold before you and getting introduced to the main character and the initial storyline, and then the introduction as far as the the giants into the storyline. Oh man, it was awesome.
Yeah,
I
man.
think people are gonna so dig it.
Yeah, we had a production meeting. About 2 o'clock this morning, my time, which was 9 o'clock in the morning their time. So after my show last night, because my show goes 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., so it was not a big deal for me to have a production meeting that late. But I had a really good meeting with them. We are really close. I mean, this is the part that's like you're so close, but you're not there yet. Because what you saw, we're about 98% done from that point. But it's that last 2% that you're really trying to fine tune and get the mix right, and talk about music cues. A little change this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. But they're talking about doing it in Adobe Atmos, which for this project is going to be really cool because typical surround sound is 5.1, where you have center, front, left, and right, and rear, left, and right. That's typical surround sound. Well, this will have center, front, left, and right, rear, left, and right, and up and down. So if you have an Adobe equipped, Atmos equipped sound system, you'll be able to hear the airplanes coming above you, coming beneath you, the sounds all around you. So the final mix should be really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it. And I think that when you release it to the public and they actually see it, people will really understand the brevity of what you've been doing all of these years, and also being able to actually view a completed product. They're going to be blown away, and I think people will come out of the woodwork to support you in this endeavor.
Well,
without a doubt.
that's the hope, that's the prayer. And the team over there, they're all excited too, because this is a feather in their cap that they can use as a promotional piece. So they'll be promoting it on their end to various studios and networks and connections that they have, as well as I'm doing whatever I do on this side. So hopefully this is the launch of something. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
And of course,
I do
when
absolutely
I get
believe
work
so.
on Enoch, that's going to be
Oh right.
really
Oh
cool.
yeah. Yeah, that it gets me excited for that as well.
Now,
Looking
the
forward
guys
to
that are interested in potentially helping raise the money for that, they want to do that in live action, which is great. That's fine. But
Mhm.
part of the reason why I'm looking for more land too is if I can get a decent size chunk of land that I can, have for a living, but more like be able to put a studio in the back there somewhere. Get a good sized warehouse built that I can do like they do on the Mandalorian and create this what they call
Mhm.
where you can blend live action with CGI, but not have to go on locations. You build all your locations in the computer, and so you have a
Right.
big space for the actors to run around and play in with a high resolution LCD or LED screen behind them, generating the imagery of whatever you've created in CGI for the backgrounds. Man, that's going to be like so cool if we get to that point.
I think it's just a matter of time, brother. And really, once you release this product, it's gonna definitely stand as, a signature to the work that you do. And then also, the comic book series and the graphic novels and all of that. And then you have the video games. I mean, that's a lot of material all connected to
Yeah.
Seed. So
Well, everybody, keep praying. Hopefully, we can make this thing really explode this year. That would be nice because I'm not getting any.
right. Right.
So I looked where we left off, and I believe we left off. We did Jubilees 26 and Genesis 28, and you read from the Targum and Legends of the Jews. So I suppose I could read Joshua 29, and I think that will get us caught up, and then we can pick up where we left off in Genesis with Genesis 29.
Sounds good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Let me switch over here then. And this is Joshua make sure this is Joshua. Yep, Joshua 29. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, became old and advanced in days, and his eyes became heavy through age. They were dim and could not see. At that time, Isaac called unto Esau his son, saying, Get, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow. Rise up and go forth into the field and get me some venison, and make me savory meat and bring it to me, that I may eat it, in order that I may bless thee before my death, as I have now become old and gray-headed. And Esau did so, and he took his weapon and went forth into the field to hunt for venison, as usual, to bring to his father as he had ordered him, so that he might bless him. And Rebekah heard all the words that Isaac had spoken unto Esau, and she hastened and called her son Jacob, saying, Thus did thy father speak unto thy brother Esau, and thus did I hear. Now therefore hasten thou, and make that which I shall tell thee. Rise up and go, I pray thee, to the flock, and fetch me 2 fine kids of the goats, and I will get the savory meat for thy father, and thou shalt bring the savory meat, that he may eat before thy brother shall have come from the chase, in order that thy father may bless thee. And Jacob hastened and did as his mother had commanded, and he made the savory meat and brought it before his father before Esau had come from his chase. And Isaac said unto Jacob, Who art thou, my son? And he said, I am thy firstborn, Esau. I have done as thou didst order me. Now therefore rise up, I pray thee, and eat of my hunt, in order that thy soul may bless me, as thou didst speak unto me. And Isaac rose up, and he ate and he drank, and his heart was comforted. And he blessed Jacob, and Jacob went away from his father. And as soon as Isaac had blessed Jacob, and he had gone away from him, behold, Esau came from his hunt, from the field, and he also made savory meat and brought it to his father to eat thereof and to bless him. And Isaac said unto Esau, And who was he that has taken venison and brought it me before thou camest, and whom did I bless? And Esau knew that his brother Jacob had done this, and the anger of Esau was kindled against his brother Jacob, and he had acted thus toward him. And Esau said, Is he not rightly called Jacob? For he has supplanted me twice. He took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. And Esau wept greatly. And when Isaac heard the voice of his son Esau weeping, Isaac said unto Esau, What can I do, my son? Thy brother came with subtlety and took away thy blessing. And Esau hated his brother Jacob on account of the blessing that his father had given him, and his anger was greatly aroused against him. And Jacob was very much afraid of his brother Esau, and he rose up and fled to the house of Eber, the son of Shem, and he concealed himself there on account of his brother. And Jacob was 63 years old when he went forth from the land of Canaan from Hebron, and Jacob was concealed in Eber's house 14 years on account of his brother Esau. And he there continued to learn the ways of the Lord and his commandments. And when Esau saw that Jacob had fled and escaped him, and that Jacob had cunningly obtained the blessing, when Esau grieved exceedingly, and he was vexed at his father and mother, and he rose up and took his wife and went away from his father and mother to the land of Seir, and dwelt there. And Esau saw there a woman from amongst the daughters of Heth, whose name was Basmath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And he took her for a wife in addition to his first wife. And Esau called her name Adah, saying, The blessing had in that time passed from him. And Esau dwelt in the land of Seir 6 months without seeing his father and mother. And afterward Esau took his wives and rose up and returned to the land of Canaan. And Esau placed his 2 wives in his father's house in Hebron. And the wives of Esau vexed and provoked Isaac and Rebekah with their works, for they walked not in the ways of the Lord, but served their father's gods of wood and stone, as their father had taught them. And they were more wicked than their father. And they went according to the evil desires of their hearts, and they sacrificed and burnt incense to the Baalim. And Isaac and Rebekah became weary of them. And Rebekah said, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are the daughters of the land, what good then is his life unto me? And in those days Adah, the wife of Esau, conceived and bare him a son. And Esau called the name of the son that was born unto him Eliphaz. And Esau was 65 years old when she bare him. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, died in those days, in the 64th year of the life of Jacob. And all the days that Ishmael lived were 137 years, and he died. And when Isaac heard that Ishmael was dead, he mourned for him, and Isaac lamented over him many days. And at the end of 14 years of Jacob's residing in the house of Eber, Jacob desired to see his father and mother. And Jacob came to the house of his father and mother to Hebron. And Esau had in those days forgotten that what Jacob had done to him, and having taken the blessing from him in those days. And when Esau saw Jacob coming to his father and mother, he remembered that what Jacob had done to him, and he was greatly incensed against him, and he sought to slay him. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was old and advanced in days. And Esau said, "Now my father's time is drawing nigh, that he must die. And when he shall die, I will slay my brother Jacob." And this was told to Rebekah, and she hastened and sent and called for Jacob her son. And she said unto him, "Arise, go and flee to Haran to my brother Laban, and remain there for some time, until thy brother's anger be turned from thee, and then shalt thou come back." And Isaac called unto Jacob and said unto him, "Take not a wife from the daughters of Canaan, for thus did our father Abraham command us according to the word of the Lord, which he had commanded him, saying, Unto thy seed will I give this land. If thy children keep my covenant that I have made with thee, then will I also perform to thy children that which I have spoken unto thee, and I will not forsake them. Now therefore, my son, hearken to my voice, to all that I shall command thee, and refrain from taking a wife from amongst the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Haran, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take unto thee a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. Therefore take heed, lest thou shouldest forget the Lord thy God and all his ways in the land to which thou goest, and shouldest get connected with the people of the land, and pursue vanity, and forsake the Lord thy God. And when thou comest to the land, serve there the Lord. Do not turn to the right or to the left from the way which I commanded thee, and which thou didst learn. And may the Almighty God grant thee favor in the sight of the people of the earth, that thou mayest take there a wife according to thy choice, one who is good and upright in the ways of the Lord. And may God give unto thee and thy seed the blessing of thy father Abraham, and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and mayest thou become a multitude of people in the land whither thou goest. And may God cause thee to return to this land, the land of thy father's dwelling, with children and with great riches, with joy and with pleasure. And Isaac finished commanding Jacob and blessing him, and he gave him many gifts together with silver and gold, and he sent him away. And Jacob hearkened to his father and mother. He kissed them, arose, and went to Padan Aram. And Jacob was 77 years old when he went out from the land of Canaan from Beersheba. And when Jacob went away to go to Haran, Esau called unto his son Eliphaz, and secretly spoke unto him, saying, Now hasten, take thy sword in thy hand, and pursue Jacob, and pass before him in the road, and lurk for him, and slay him with thy sword in one of the mountains, and take all belonging to him, and come back. And Eliphaz, the son of Esau, was an active man and expert with the bow, and his father had taught him, and he was a noted hunter in the field and a valiant man. And Eliphaz did as his father had commanded him. And Eliphaz was at that time 13 years old. And Eliphaz rose up and went and took 10 of his mother's brothers with him, and pursued Jacob. And he closely followed Jacob, and he lurked for him in the border of the land of Canaan, opposite the city of Shechem. And Jacob saw Eliphaz and his men pursuing him, and Jacob stood still in the place in which he was going, in order to know what this was, for he did not know the thing. And Eliphaz drew his sword, and he went on advancing, he and his men, toward Jacob. And Jacob said unto them, What is to do with you that you have come hither? And what meaneth it that you pursueth with your swords? And Eliphaz came near to Jacob, and he answered and said unto him, Thus did my father command me, and now therefore I will not deviate from the orders which my father gave me. And when Jacob saw that Esau had spoken to Eliphaz to employ force, Jacob then approached and supplicated Eliphaz and his men, saying unto him, Behold, all that I have, and which my father and mother gave unto me, that take unto thee, and go from me, and do not slay me. May this thing be accounted unto thee a righteousness. And the Lord caused Jacob to find favor in the sight of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and his men. And they hearkened to the voice of Jacob, and they did not put him to death. And Eliphaz and his men took all belonging to Jacob, together with the silver and gold that he had brought with him from Beersheba. They left him nothing. And Eliphaz and his men went away from him, and they returned to Esau to Beersheba. And they told him all that had occurred to them with Jacob, and they gave all that they had taken from Jacob. And Esau was indignant at Eliphaz's son, at his men that were with him, because they had not put Jacob to death. And they answered and said unto Esau, because Jacob supplicated with us in this manner, not to slay him.
Hold on. We'll be right back, everyone.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Every day, questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses,
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible?
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Join us the second Friday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together. Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity, but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
We have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's wheel.
Here on Earth, we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. And indeed, they believe that the stories might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands, all but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time, our lapses, and with it are much of the facts of imagine that gods came in alien class.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second portion. I'll turn it back over to you, Rob. Yeah, you're reading from the Book of Jasher.
Okay. Yeah, almost done with this chapter here. I'll go back to verse 40. And Esau was indignant with Eliphaz at Eliphaz's son, at his men that were with him, because they had not put Jacob to death. And they answered and said unto Esau, because Jacob supplicated us in this manner not to slay him, our pity was excited toward him, and we took all belonging to him and brought it unto thee. And Esau took all the silver and gold which Eliphaz had taken from Jacob, and he put them by in his house. At that time, when Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had commanded him, saying, thou shalt not take a wife from amongst the daughters of Canaan, and that the daughters of Canaan were bad in the sight of Isaac and Rebekah, then he went to the house of Ishmael, his uncle, and in addition to his older wives, he took Machlath, the daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Nebaioth, for a wife. So this is a different rendering than what we had. I don't remember if it was in Jubilees or the Targum or Legend of the Jews, or both, or all three, or whatever. But it was Rebecca, if you remember in last week's show, that had him leave like right away, right after right after he had deceived his father. There was a whole dialogue like, I'll tell you what, we could, when she found out that Esau wanted to kill him, she's like, I'll stir something up about, the wives, so he'll send you away. So she made this whole thing up like, yeah, I can't stand, the wives of Esau, and it would grieve me forever, if Jacob did that. And Isaac's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we should send him away. Where this story, that takes place quite some time later. There was a big intermission where he goes off to be with Shem, or the house of Eber, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, it depends on the story, because some that he went there first, and then it was like 12 or 13 years later that he went to Laban's. So it's just, well, Joshua, many times Joshua is the one that really elaborates and expands on the story. Yeah, embellishes. Yeah.
Where like Genesis is like the bullet point of the cliff note, and
right.
And Jubilees tends to be a little bit more verbose than Genesis, but sometimes it's truncated as well, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Which, considering all of that, it makes me think about how when God gave Moshe Genesis and the story, that all of these other manuscripts were out there, or some of the other ones, parallel accounts going back to whatever, that perhaps though there were other parallel accounts which did embellish on the story, so that only the cliff notes were provided in the Genesis narrative, because perhaps they knew about in fuller manner from other accounts the deeper story, like with the Targum.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what is the point of the particular text? Genesis appears to have a very specific agenda that wants to get you from creation really to the point of the Exodus, because it's Exodus forward that the rest of the Bible is really about, So it's like, okay, how do I give, Moses the pertinent points that get us from creation to this point?
Yes, because then that's where, they're living and picking up the story.
Right.
And providing in deep detail what's going on right then.
Yeah, so while Genesis is covering a massive period of time, Joshua's focusing more on a specific timeline. Joshua's focus seems to be on the life of Abraham and the immediate descendants of Jacob.
Yes, right.
Because you get like a few chapters of Abraham in Genesis, but you get like 200 pages worth of elaboration in Joshua, and maybe half that in Jubilees.
Right, exactly. And then, like, with the early part of the Genesis narrative, you have the primary Adamic literature that focuses on the life of Adam and Eve, and then these successive generations leading up to Enoch and Noah. And then, you have the flood event. And then after that, you have some books like the Genesis Apocryphon, and focusing on Noah, and even like Baruch, the third book of Baruch, the Slavonic and Greek is focused on Noah as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Do you want me to read Genesis 29?
Yeah.
And then you can
and then I'll go into Targum, right?
Okay. Let me switch over here. Genesis 29 in the King James. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field. And lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and upon the stone again, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran are we. And he said unto them, Know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time for the cattle, that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks be gathered together, and till they roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then we water the sheep. And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel, and lifted up his voice, and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother. And that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. And it came to pass, when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought him into his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said unto him, Surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. And Laban said unto Jacob, Because thou art my brother, shouldst thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel, and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And Laban said, It is better that I give her to thee than that I give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him a few days, for the love he had to her. And Jacob said unto Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening, they took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, What is this thou hast done unto me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, it must not be so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name called Levi. And she conceived again and bare a son. And she said, now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. Yeah, that's a common misconception I've even had myself, that he worked 7 years for Rachel but ended up with Leah, and then he had to work another 7 years to get Rachel. But that's not what happened. He worked 7, and then there was a time of wedding celebration, purification, and all that for 7 for a week or whatever, and then he got Rachel also in advance with the pledge of working 7 more years.
Oh, okay, right on. Yeah, very cool. All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I had left off on chapter 28 with regard to the Targum, so I'll pick up there.
Yeah, okay. So we have Joshua 29, Genesis 29, and Targum Genesis 29.
Yes, but start. I'll read from 28 and then 29. All right, you ready? Okay. 5 miracles were wrought for our father Jacob at the time that he went forth from Beersheba. The first sign, the hours of the day were shortened, and the sun went down before his time. For as much as the word had desired to speak with him, the second sign, the 4 stones which Jacob had set for his pillow, he found in the morning, had become 1 stone. Sign the third, the stone which when all the flocks were assembled, they rolled from the mouth of the well, he rolled away with one of his arms. The 4th sign, the well overflowed and the water rose to the edge of it, and continued to overflow all the days that he was in Haran. The 5th sign, the country was shortened before him, so that in one day he went forth and came to Haran. And he prayed in the place of the house of the sanctuary, and lodged there because the sun had gone down. And he took 4 stones of the holy place, and set his pillow, and slept in that place. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was fixed in the ground, and the top of it reached to the height of heaven. And behold, the 2 angels who went unto Sodom, and who had been expelled from the midst of them, because they had revealed the secrets of the Lord of the world, and being cast forth, they had walked till the time that Jacob went out from the house of his father, and had accompanied him with kindliness unto Bethel. In that day had ascended to the high heavens, and said, come, see Jacob the pious, whose likeness is inlaid in the throne of glory, and whom you have so greatly to desire to behold. Then the rest of the angels of the Holy Lord descended to look upon him. You know what? I'm thinking that I already read this, actually.
Yeah, we talked about stone this week.
Yeah, we did. I'm just going to skip to 29.
Cool.
All right. And Jacob lifted up his feet lightly to proceed, and he came to the land of the children of the cast. And he looked and saw, and behold, there was a well in a field, and behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because from that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was laid upon the mouth of the well. And they gathered the flocks there, and rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and set the stone on the mouth of the well in its place. And Jacob said to them, My brethren, whence are you? And they said, From Haran are we. And he said to them, Know you Laban bar Nahor? And they said, We know. And he said, Hath he peace? And they said, Peace. And behold, Rahel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, Behold, the time of the day is great. Is it not time to gather home the cattle, water the sheep, and let them go again to pasture? Jerusalem, it is not time to gather. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together, and we roll the stone from the mouth of the well, and water the sheep. And while they were speaking with him, Rahel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess at that time, because there had been a plague from the Lord among the sheep of Laban, and but few of them were left. And he had dismissed his shepherds, and had put the remaining flock before Rahel his daughter. And it was when Jacob saw Rahel the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went nigh, and rolled the stone with one of his arms from the mouth of the well. And the well uprose, and the waters ascended to the top of it. And he watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, and it uprose for 20 years. And Jacob kissed Rahel, and lifted up his voice, and wept. And Jacob told unto Rahel that he was come to be with her father, to take one of his daughters. And Rahel answered him, Thou canst not dwell with him, for he is a man of cunning. And Jacob said to her, I am more cunning and wiser than he, nor can he do me evil, because the word of the Lord is my helper. And when she knew that he was the son of Rebekah, she ran and made it known to her father. And it was when Laban heard the account of the strength and the piety of Jacob, the son of his sister, how he had taken the birthright and the order of blessing from the hand of his brother, and how the Lord had revealed himself to him at Bethel, how the stone had been removed, and how the well had upflowed and risen to the brink. He ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and led him into the house. And he related to Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Truly thou art my near one and my blood. And he dwelt with him a month of days. And Laban said to Jacob, Though thou art reputed, my brother, shouldst thou serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall be thy wages? And Laban had 2 daughters, the name of the elder Leah, and the name of the younger Rahel. And the eyes of Leah were moist, or dropping, running from weeping and praying before the Lord, that he would not destine her for Esau the wicked. And Rahel was beautiful in appearance and of a fair countenance. Jerusalem. And the eyes of Leah were tender, for she had wept and prayed, that she might not be brought up in the lot of Esau. And Rahel was beautiful in appearance and of fair countenance. And Jacob loved Rahel, and he said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rahel thy younger daughter. And Laban said with deceit, It is better that I give her to thee than to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served for Rahel 7 years, and they seemed in his eyes as a few days, because he loved her. And Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for the days of my service are completed, and I will go in with her. And Laban gathered all the men of the place, and made them a feast. Answering, he said to them, Behold, 7 years since Jacob came to us, The wells have not failed, and the watered places are multiplied. And now come, let us counsel against him, cunning counsel, that he may remain with us. And they gave him cunning counsel, that he should take Leah to him instead of Rahel, Jerusalem. And Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. And Laban answered and said to them, Behold, 7 years are from the coming of this just man to us. Our waterings have not failed, and our springs are many. And now come, give me counsel how we may settle, or subject him among us yet 7 years. And they gave him cunning counsel, to take Leah to him instead of Rahel. And it was in the evening that he brought Leah his daughter, and introduced her to him. And he went in with her, and Laban gave to him Zilpah, his daughter, whom his concubine had borne to him. And he delivered her to Leah his daughter, to be her handmaid. And it was the time of the morning, and he saw her, and behold, she was Leah, whom all the night he had thought to be Rahel, because Rahel had delivered to her all the things with which Jacob had presented her. But when he saw this, he said to Laban, What is this thou hast done to me? Was it not for Rahel that I served with thee? Why hast thou deceived me? And Laban said, It is not so done in our place, to give the younger before the elder. Fulfill now the 7 days of the feast of this, and I will give thee also that for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. Jerusalem. Fulfill the 7 days of this feast of Leah, and I will give. And Jacob did so and fulfilled the 7 days of the feast of Leah. And he gave him Rahel, his daughter, to wife. And Laban gave to Rahel his daughter, Bilhah, whom his concubine bare him. And he delivered her unto her to be her handmaid. And he went in also unto Rahel, and he loved Rahel also more than Leah. And he served with him for her yet 7 other years. And it was revealed before the Lord that Leah was not loved in the sight of Jacob. And he said in his word that sons should be given her, and that Rahel should be barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and called his name Reuben, for she said, My affliction was manifest before the Lord. Therefore, now will my husband love me? For my affliction hath been manifested before the Lord, as will be the affliction of my children before the Lord, when they shall be enslaved in the land of the Mizraim. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she said, Because it was heard before the Lord that I was hated, and he gave me this also, and so will be heard before him the voice of my children, when they shall be enslaved in Mizraim. And she called his name Shimeon. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, This time will my husband be united to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. And thus will it be that my children shall be united to serve before the Lord. Therefore she called his name Levi. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, This time will I give praise before the Lord, for from this day my son, kings shall come forth, and from him shall spring David, the king, who shall offer praise before the Lord. Therefore she called his name Yehudah, and she ceased to bear.
That's awfully prophetic.
Right? Yeah.
Her claiming that David would come. That had to have been written in retrospect.
Possibly, you never know. But yeah, a lot of things, in the Targum seem to be prophetic. Even like when, well, we'll get to it at the end of this story, when Jacob is passing and then speaks to the 12 sons, like the testament of the 12 patriarchs. He makes mention of the Messiah and speaks about, the coming of the word of the Lord into flesh form. But this is not found in the Genesis narrative. So there are portions that are prophetic. But yeah, the naming of David seems very interesting.
As they say in script writing, that's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow. Ready.
All right, we'll be right back for a second hour.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed, and we are continuing our Genesis Revisited series. I'll turn it back over to you, Rob.
I'm not sure where we left off. I was kind of listening to the commercial breaks and the news reports these days.
We were just talking about, the prophetic nature of some of the Targums and,
okay.
Testament of the 12 Patriarchs and things of that nature when we went to break. But
yeah, listening to the news these days is like taking a trip into the psycho zone. It's just
right.
Unbelievable these days.
People are getting punished for truth, I mean, because this woman getting punished for 9/11 truth, it reminds me of Cynthia McKinney, who was another Georgia representative who got basically driven out of office for coming out on 9/11 truth. Yeah. And, the powers that be don't like it, and they will punish you. They'll go after you. And certainly these two Georgia representatives are, example of that. And just like how there used to be, whistleblower protection, and you would get a reward for speaking out against government corruption. But now, like Edward Snowden, he had to leave the country and run for his life because of blowing the whistle on the government spying on its citizens and utilizing even the video cameras on our laptops and on our computers and the mics on our cell phones to listen in and to spy on us, and how the Patriot Act turned everything upside down, and like we're guilty until proven innocent instead of innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Sorry, it looks like my OBS disconnected and then reconnected. I think we're still streaming on my end. I know we're still good on TFR, but it was interesting in the Targum, though. It mentioned it said specifically, the word of the Lord is my helper. That was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's, I had told people about how there's 217 allusions and translations connected to the word of the Lord, or the word, or things like that are found in the first 5 books of the Pentateuch in the Aramaic version. But in the King James, there's only 11 such translations. And so I believe there's an organized effort to remove the word of the Lord from the manuscripts, which, we know that in John chapter 1, that Christ was pre-incarnate before taking on flesh embodiment, and that he was even there when, banishing Adam from paradise and giving him the prophecy that he'll be born of a virgin 55 years after his being cast out of paradise. And so
5,500.
Yeah, the 5,500 years.
The other thing that was interesting was in the Joshua account, how he gave all his silver and gold and everything, that the blessing that Isaac had given him, he gave it to Esau in order to save his life. So it's like he stole the blessing. Well, he stole the birthright, which gives him the right to the blessing, and the blessing, not just the words of his father blessing him, but also the inheritance.
Yes.
And so even though he stole it through dishonest means, Esau ended up with it anyway.
Right.
At least according to that narrative, he ended up with all the riches there. And it just made me think, it's like, yeah, but the real blessing was in the words that his father gave, and through the words that his father gave, the word of the Lord was his inheritance.
Yes, exactly.
So monetary stuff goes to Esau. He got all the gold and silver, but Jacob had the testimony that, hey, the word of the word of the Lord is my companion, my helper, my provider.
Yes, amen. And that was also, in the Targum, it spoke about how the word of the Lord was also the helper for Isaac, and also for Abraham, and that the covenant that was made, as we saw from the writings of the Jews, which I give a shout out to Adam in the parable of the vineyard and all his work on that. He did a really excellent job in covering some of this information. And so, yeah, all of that is deeply related in those writings, and also the Targum, that there is an emphasis on the covenant being established by the Father through the word of the Lord, and that it reflects that he would be Messiah and Savior for the 12 tribes.
Yeah, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I didn't really have any other notes, anything jump out at you and any that what we read other than what we just talked about?
I've got from the Legends of the Jews here the story of Jacob being pursued by Eliphaz and Esau. So I can read this portion.
Yeah.
All right.
That was an interesting thing too. I forgot about that. That I read that in Joshua, the whole deal with Eliphaz, and it sounded like there were Hittites that were with him.
Yes. Right.
Man.
Yeah, that was related in I forget which story, but yeah, one of the ones we read.
That's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. All right, the Legends of the Jews. When Jacob went away to go to Haran, Esau called his son Eliphaz and secretly spoke unto him, saying, Now hasten, take thy sword in thy hand and pursue Jacob, and pass before him in the road and lurk for him, and slay him with the sword in one of the mountains, and take all belonging unto him, and come back. And Eliphaz was dexterous and expert with the bow, as his father had taught him. And he was a noted hunter in the field, and a valiant man. And Eliphaz did as his father had commanded him. And Eliphaz was at that time 13 years old. And he arose and went and took 10 of his mother's brothers with him, and pursued Jacob. And he followed Jacob closely. And when he overtook him, he lay in ambush for him on the borders of the land of Canaan, opposite to the city of Shechem. And Jacob saw Eliphaz and his men pursuing after him. And Jacob stood in the place in which he was going, in order to know what it was, for he did not understand their purpose. Eliphaz drew his sword and went on advancing, he and his men, toward Jacob. And Jacob said unto them, Wherefore have you come hither, and why do you pursue with your swords? Eliphaz came near to Jacob and answered as follows, Thus did my father command me, and now therefore I will not deviate from the orders which my father gave me. And when Jacob saw that Esau had impressed his command urgently upon Eliphaz, he approached and supplicated Eliphaz and his men, saying, Behold, all that I have, and that which my father and mother gave unto me, that take unto thee, and go from me, and do not slay me, and may this thing that thou wilt do with me be accounted unto thee as righteousness. And the Lord caused Jacob to find favor in the sight of Eliphaz and his men, and they hearkened to the voice of Jacob. And they did not put him to death, but took all his belongings, together with the silver and the gold that he had brought with him from Beersheba. They left him nothing. And when Eliphaz and his men returned to Esau, and told him all that had happened to them with Jacob, he was wroth with them, with his son Eliphaz, and with his men, because they had not put Jacob to death. And they answered and said unto Esau, Because Jacob supplicated us in this matter, not to slay him, our pity was moved toward him, and we took all belonging to him, and we came back. Esau then took all the silver and gold, which Eliphaz had taken from Jacob, and he put them by in his house. Nevertheless, Esau did not give up the hope of intercepting Jacob on his flight and slaying him. He pursued him and with his men occupied the road along which he had to journey to Haran. There a great miracle happened to Jacob. When he observed what Esau's intention was, he turned off toward the Jordan River, and with eyes directed to God, he cleft the waters with his wanderer's staff, and succeeded in crossing to the other side. I should mention that this wanderer's staff is also counted as the staff of God, the rod of wonder. So
Really?
yeah, because it speaks about in some of the notes that Louis Ginsburg had written about this staff, and which I include in that book, The Vestures of Light and the Rod of Wonder, that Moshe had known the story of Jacob using the staff to split the river previously, the River Jordan. And so that was, also the thought on parting the Reed Sea. All right, so continuing. He kept up the pursuit and reached the hot springs at Baras before his brother, who had to pass by there. Jacob, not knowing that Esau was on the watch for him, decided to bathe in the spring, saying, I have neither bread nor other things needful, so I will at least warm my body in the waters of the well. And while he was in the bath, Esau occupied every exit, and Jacob would surely have perished in the hot water if the Lord had not caused a miracle to come to pass. A new opening formed of itself, and through it Jacob escaped. Thus were fulfilled the words, When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burnt. For Jacob was saved from the waters of the Jordan, and from the fire of the hot spring. At the same time with Jacob, a rider, leaving his horse and his clothes on the shore, had stepped into the river to cool off, but he was overwhelmed by the waves, and he met his death. Jacob put on the dead man's clothes, mounted his horse, and went off. It was a lucky chance, for Eliphaz had stripped him of everything, even his clothes, and the miracle of the river had happened only that he might not be forced to appear naked among men. Though Jacob was robbed of all his possessions, his courage did not fail him. He said, Should I lose hope in my Creator? I set my eyes upon the merits of my fathers. For the sake of them, the Lord will give me his aid. And God said, Jacob, thou puttest thy trust in the merits of thy fathers. Therefore, I will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Yea, still more. While a keeper watcheth only by day, as a rule, and sleepeth by night, I will guard thee day and night. For behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord will keep thee from all evil, from Esau as well as Laban. He will keep thy soul, that the angel of death do thee no hurt. He will keep thy going out and thy coming in. He will support thee now thou art leaving Canaan, and when thou returnest to Canaan. Jacob was reluctant to leave the Holy Land before he received direct permission from God. My parents, he reflected, bade me go forth and sojourn outside of the land, but who knows whether it be the will of God that I do as they say, and beget children outside of the Holy Land. Accordingly, he betook himself to Beersheba, there where the Lord had given permission to Isaac to depart from Canaan and go to Philistia. He would learn the will of the Lord concerning himself. He did not follow the example of his father and grandfather and take refuge with Abimelech, because he feared the king might force also him into a covenant and make it impossible for his descendants of many generations to take possession of the Philistine land. Nor could he stay at home, because of his fear that Esau might wrest the birthright and the blessing from him, and to that he would not and could not agree. He was as little disposed to take up the combat with Esau, for he knew the truth of the maxim. Sorry. He who courts danger will be overcome by it. He who avoids danger will overcome it. Both Abraham and Isaac had lived according to this rule. His grandfather had fled from Nimrod, and his father had gone away from the Philistines. Jacob's journey to Haran was a succession of miracles. The first of the 5 that befell for his sake in the course of it was that the sun sank with Jacob was passing Mount Moriah, though it was high noon at the time. He was following the spring that appeared wherever the patriarchs went or settled. It accompanied Jacob from Beersheba to Mount Moriah, a 2 days' journey. And when he arrived at the holy hill, the Lord said to him, Jacob, thou hast bread in thy wallet, and the spring of waters is nearby to quench thy thirst. Thus thou hast food and drink, and here thou canst lodge for the night. But Jacob replied, the sun has barely passed the 5th of its 12-day stages. Why should I lie down to sleep at so unseemly an hour? But then Jacob perceived that the sun was about to sink, and he prepared to make ready his bed. It was the divine purpose not to let Jacob pass the site of the future temple without stopping. He was to tarry there at least 1 night. Also God desired to appear unto Jacob, and he showed himself unto his faithful ones only at night. At the same time, Jacob was saved from the pursuit of Esau, who had to desist on account of the premature darkness. Jacob took 12 stones from the altar on which his father Isaac had lain bound as a sacrifice. Oh, that's interesting. And he said, it was the purpose of God to let 12 tribes arise, but they have not been begotten by Abraham or Isaac. If now these 12 stones will unite into a single one, then shall I know for a certainty that I am destined to become the father of the 12 tribes. At this time, the second miracle came to pass. The 12 stones joined themselves together and made one, which he put under his head. And at once it became soft and downy like a pillow. It was well that he had a comfortable couch. He was in great need of rest, for it was the first night in 14 years that he did not keep vigils. During all those years passed in Eber's house of learning, he had devoted the nights to study, and for 20 years to come he was not to sleep. For while he was with his uncle Laban, he spent all the night and every night reciting the Psalms. On the whole, it was a night of marvels. He dreamed a dream in which the course of the world's history was unfolded to him. On a ladder set up on the earth, with the top of it reaching to heaven, he beheld the 2 angels who had been sent to Sodom. For 138 years they had been banished from the celestial regions, because they had betrayed their secret mission to Lot. They had accompanied Jacob from his father's house thither, and now they were ascending heavenward. When they arrived there, he heard them call the other angels and say, come ye, and see the countenance of the pious Jacob, whose likeness appears on the divine throne. Ye who yearned long to see it. And then he beheld the angels descend from heaven to gaze upon him. He also saw the angels of the 4 kingdoms ascending the ladder. The angel of Babylon mounted 70 rounds. The angel of Medea, 52, that mounted 70 rounds, that mounted very high, saying, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And Jacob heard a voice remonstrating, Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the uttermost parts of the pit. God himself reproved Edom, saying, Though thou mount on high as the eagle, and though thy nest be set among the stars, I will bring thee down from thence. Furthermore, God showed unto Jacob the revelation at Mount Sinai, the translation of Elijah, the temple in its glory and in its spoliation, Nebuchadnezzar's attempt to burn the three holy children in the fiery furnace, and Daniel's encounter with Baal. In this, the first prophetic dream, dreamed by Jacob, God made him the promise that the land upon which he was lying would be given to him. But the land he lay upon was the whole of Palestine, which God had folded together and put under him. And the promise continued, Thy seed will be like unto the dust of the earth. As the earth survives all things, so thy children will survive all the nations of the earth. But as the earth is trodden upon by all, so thy children, when they commit trespasses, will be trodden upon by the nations of the earth. And furthermore, God promised that Jacob should spread out to the west and to the east, a greater promise than that given to his fathers Abraham and Isaac, to whom he had allotted a limited land. Jacob's was an unbounded possession. From this wondrous dream, Jacob awoke with a start of fright on account of the vision he had of the destruction of the temple. He cried out, How dreadful is this place! This is none other but the house of God, wherein is the gate of heaven, through which prayer ascends to him. He took the stone made out of the 12, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it, which had flowed down from heaven for him. And God sank this anointed stone unto the abyss, to serve as the center of the earth, the same stone, the Eben Shettiah, that forms the center of the sanctuary, whereupon the ineffable name is graven, the knowledge of which makes a man master over nature, over life and death. Jacob cast himself down before the Eben Shettiah and entreated God to fulfill the promise he had given him, and also he prayed that God grant him honorable sustenance. For God had not mentioned bread to eat and raiment to put on, that Jacob might learn to have faith in the Lord. Then he vowed to give the tenth of all he owed unto God, if he would but grant his petition. Thus Jacob was the first to take a vow upon himself, and the first too to separate the tithe from his income. God had promised him also all that is desirable, but he feared he might forfeit the pledged blessings through his sinfulness, and again he prayed earnestly that God bring him back to his father's house, unimpaired in body, possessions, and knowledge, and guard him in the strange land whither he was going, against idolatry and immoral life and bloodshed. His prayer at an end, Jacob set out on his way to Haran, and the third wonder happened. In the twinkling of an eye, he arrived at his destination. The earth jumped from Mount Moriah to Haran. A wonder like this God has executed only 4 times in the whole course of history. The first thing to meet his eye in Haran was the well whence the inhabitants drew their supply of water. Although it was a great city, Haran suffered from dearth of water, and therefore the well could not be used by the people free of charge. Jacob's sojourn in the city produced a change. By reason of his meritorious deeds, the water springs were blessed, and the city had water enough for its needs. Jacob saw a number of the people by the well, and he questioned them, "My brethren, whence be ye he thus made himself?" Well, we'll be right back for final section.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures. Everyday questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses?
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible.
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Join us the second Friday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for our final segment. Rob, is there anything you wanted to comment on before I continue with the story?
Yeah, there's a couple cool things. First of all, I need to apologize. I think it sounds you sound good on my end, and it seems like everything's from my end is going good on your side. Your YouTube feed apparently is doing well, but people in the chat room were saying mine was cutting in and out. So I think it was my VPN was probably jacking up. I was afraid to disconnect during the last segment, so I waited till break and disconnected during the break. But people say it's back up now, so I guess I'll probably have to grab it from your channel. You got it up going at the same time on your channel, right?
Yeah, Justin's live streaming it now, but yeah, VPN does it causes things like that to happen with different websites. I find that especially if you run too much with the VPN, it'll lock up.
Choking up. I'll get that straightened out. I'll probably just I'll check this one after my video posts to YouTube, and if it's all jacked up, I'll just re-upload yours on my channel.
All right, sounds good.
People could have that tomorrow. But on the things that you were reading, yeah. So you're reading from Legends of the Jews, right? That time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yes.
Both of that, Legends of the Jews we've seen before tends to very closely parallel the Joshua account.
Right.
And I remembered it when I was reading it, but then I forgot to talk about it until you brought it up again, that it was opposite Shechem, that this, the Eliphaz encounter, which is interesting because later that's where Joseph goes to find his brothers who were supposed to be in Shechem, but they had left there and went to Dothan, and that's where Joseph was sold into slavery. But I mean, I don't know if you've ever done a study on Shechem, but just, I would recommend people, if they just do a Bible keyword search for Shechem and read everything that takes place there. That is definitely a focal point of the land of Israel. I don't believe it's ground zero, but there could be no question that there are a lot of very interesting events that take place at that specific location. And if you look at it on Google Earth, it's a pretty wild place. It looks like it was once a complete mountain range that the middle of it was scooped out and like maybe made a figure eight between the two. So it's such that both the north, I think it's north and south ends of the mountain now are horseshoe shaped like an amphitheater, such that when the Israelites came in from the Exodus and when they came into the land and Joshua was told to split the tribes half on Gerizim and half on Ebal and pronounce the blessings and cursings, he could stand in the center of the cutout, the valley between the two, and speak, and everybody could hear him on both mountain ranges. It's like an amphitheater. It's a very cool looking place, topographically when you look it up. But Jim Staley, he believes that was the location where Yahuwah had cut the covenant with Abraham, where he walked the pieces of the animal parts. And
yes,
if that's the case, I mean, it looks like, a God-sized individual did like a figure eight between the mountains there and carved out that the horseshoe kind of amphitheater type of formation there. It's a really fascinating stuff. It just caught my attention that this ambush there against Jacob, no less, from the later promises are going to come. It's almost like there's the serpent seed issue there, attempt to take out Jacob at ground zero.
Yes. Right.
Where the promise of Abraham was given.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also very interesting that in the stories that we've read from and that we brought forth, that in the writings of Abraham, it describes that as taking place on Passover, that the covenant was made, and when he split the animals, and then there was the different meanings of each, and then the dove representative of even the coming of Messiah, and that being stated specifically in that particular text. And then we have Abraham offering Isaac on the same altar that he had, when he offered those animals, it was same there on Mount Moriah, and that it described in the Targum and also in one of the other books, I think maybe the Legends of the Jews, but it spoke about how that was the same altar that Adam had first set up when making sacrifice, and that was the same one that Cain and Abel used when they made their offerings when they were 13, and that was also on Passover. And then when Noah disembarked from the ark, and that this was the same altar wherever he ended up being there near that altar and offered the burnt offerings in the same manner, rebuilding Adam's altar, and then that this is the same one that Abraham had also made covenant with Yahuwah, and through the word of the Lord, and that received the promise of the promised seed, not being Eleazar, but that he would give birth to Isaac through Sarah. And then now we see that Jacob here was stopped in this specific place, because this is also where that altar is located, that this is where the temple would be built later, and that the stone signifying, and that God even made the day hasten and go down, so he had to stop to rest and to sleep there, and that he would dream this dream of his being the father of the 12 tribes, and the Messiah would come through one of those those from his children, the seed of the promise. And that this is the ongoing continuation, the saga of the seed of the woman and the enmity between the seed of the serpent, as it plays out, because certainly Esau and Ishmael were regarded as such, that they were the enemies of Israel, even though they are the kin and blood related to the seed of promise.
Yeah, no, it's kind of cool that I mean, when you're reading just the Genesis account, he's like, this is the house of God, and you're like, why? He saw angels going up and down.
Right.
Deal. But in Legends of the Jews, he had literally seen a vision of the temple.
Right.
And so his statement, "This is the house of God," it's not that has more significance than the rock that he's laying his head on in a field somewhere. Is that he saw, and I guess did it say the destruction of the temple too? It sounded like yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and that would take place by Edom, who is Esau, and so again the contention, the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. Yeah,
and speaking of descendants of Jacob, I frequently refer to the book A Dictionary of Scripture Proper Names by J.B. Jackson, and always find it interesting when you can look up, especially when you get various genealogies listed, in particular the 12 sons of Jacob, because they're not always listed in the birth order. Many times they are listed in birth order. Like obviously we just get as far as Levi in this chapter we just read, but when we read of all the offspring elsewhere in Scripture, it's not always in the birth order, which is interesting because when you take the meaning of the names and look them up, and string them together in sentences and paragraphs, the sentence of the paragraph changes based on the listing in the birth order, which is pretty cool. This is the Torah portion, week 7, that this passage of Genesis is covered, that we're talking about here. Let me see if I can put up on the screen. On my Virtual House Church website, I've got pages dedicated to each week's study, and this is the Vayetz week 7 study. And if you scroll down on the page, you got the different the offspring of Abraham, and who begat who. And then below that, the meaning of the names from this week's study. And I've got Jacob through Joseph listed in that week's study. But if we just take the ones that we just read about today, in chapter, was it 28? Did we reach 28 or no, 29? Chapter 29, Genesis. Yes. Reuben is Sia's son, Simeon is hearkening, and Levi is joined, and Judah is he shall be praised. So if you put it together in a sentence, Sia's son, hearkening, joined, he shall be praised.
Awesome.
Kind of cool. You put all 12 together though, and add in Benjamin as the son of Joseph. No, excuse me, the last son of
Rahel,
son of Jacob.
I mean. The last son of Jacob. Yeah.
So if you take Reuben to Benjamin, you have Sia's son hearkening and joined, he shall be praised, judging my wrestling, a fortune, happy he will bring, dwelling judgment, let him add the son of my right hand.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I love these. And, people take no interest in the genealogy and just completely skip over all that. And, they're bored with the who begot who and who was son of whom. They ignore all that. And yet there's so much meaning and prophecy even indicative of the meanings with the names.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll continue this and get to a stopping point, and then we'll comment on the rest of it.
Okay.
All right. Continuing. Jacob saw a number of people by the well, and he questioned them, "My brethren, whence be ye?" He thus made himself a model for all to follow. A man should be companionable and address others like brothers and friends, and not wait for them to greet him. Each one should strive to be the first to give the salutation of peace, that the angels of peace and compassion may come to meet him. When he was informed that bystanders hailed from Haran, he made inquiry about the character and vocation of his uncle Laban, and whether they were on terms of friendly intercourse with him. They answered briefly, "There is peace between us, but if thou art desirous of inquiring further, here comes Rachel, the daughter of Laban. From her thou canst learn all thou hast a mind to learn." They knew that women liked to talk, wherefore they referred to Rachel. Jacob found it strange that so many should be standing idle by the well, and he questioned further, "Are you day laborers? Then is it too early for you to put by your work? But if you are pasturing your own sheep, why do you not water your flocks and let them feed?" They told him they were waiting until all the shepherds brought their flocks thither and together rolled the stone from the mouth of the well. While he was yet speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep. For Laban had no sons, and a pest having broken out, and a pestilence, I'm assuming, having broken out shortly before among his cattle, so few sheep were left that a maiden like Rachel could easily tend them. Now, when Jacob saw the daughter of his mother's brother approaching, he rolled the great stone from the mouth of the well as easily as a cork is drawn from a bottle. The fourth wonder of this extraordinary day. Jacob's strength was equal to the strength of all the shepherds. With the united forces of a large assemblage of men, he had been divinely endowed with this supernatural strength. On leaving the Holy Land, God had caused the dew of the resurrection to drop down upon him, and his physical strength was so great that even in a combat with the angels, he was victorious.
Wow, that's true.
Fifth. Yeah, that is an interesting passage. The fifth and last wonder of the day was that the water rose from the depths of the well to the very top. There was no need to draw it up, and there it remained all the 20 years that Jacob abode in Haran.
Wow. Now
I can stop here. We can comment.
Yeah.
For the rest of the show.
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Jacob's like 70 years old at this time, isn't he? In the previous things, it sounded like. So he's getting up there an age where at least, well, I don't know how long do you remember how old Jacob was when he died?
You mean
Yeah.
as I think when Shem died, I think he left there when he was 65.
Yeah.
He
But
left that house. Yeah.
how long did Jacob live? Do you remember?
No.
Because I never imagined him being this old at this time here. But okay. So well, he's middle age. He lived to 140.
Mhm.
So 147. He's only 75 here. He's still spring chicken.
Yeah.
At that point. But that's he called it the dew of the resurrection. That's interesting.
Yeah. I've read about that in a number of places that it will be the morning dew that God uses that to resurrect the dead.
Huh.
At the end of days, where it speaks about that in 2 Thessalonians. But there are mentions in other places of the same, the dew being used to resurrect unto life certain, people that have passed on. So yeah, it's always the dew that is related to resurrection in some odd manner.
It's funny, just the way my brain works. Sometimes I was thinking I don't know if you ever saw the movie Kung Fu Panda. You ever see that?
Yeah, I don't remember it, in great detail, but I do remember.
Yeah, Jack Black plays the panda, and he's Oogway the turtle or whatever it was, sensei, and he's like, you must learn how to, learn all the ways of the kung fu or whatever, and master and survive on the dew, and here's this fat panda. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna need more than dew.
Right.
I'm gonna need more than dew. These things pop into my head sometimes, but
right on.
But the dew of the resurrection, that's pretty cool, and it gave him supernatural strength. And it sounds like what you just read, that he had wrestled with angels before, or more than once.
Yeah, well, there at that where that stone was and where he had dreamt of the temple, and we see the passage that is connected to Isaiah 14. In some of the places, in other places, it speaks about how he wrestled against Samael, who is Satan the adversary, the angel of death, the viper of God, and that it was Samael that beguiled Eve as well. And he is counted the angel of protection for Esau and Edom, that he's the angel over, that particular.
Well, that's kind of flipped. I mean, I think most people, from the Genesis account, assume that he wrestled with like a pre-incarnate Yeshua.
Some do, but there are other manuscripts that allude to his wrestling Samael in some manner, and so that's what I thought of when I saw this particular passage, as allusions to that. But yeah, you're right. There are different interpretations according to story.
Yeah, I mean, we're not given a name, so
right.
Everybody's assuming, either way, unless we read an ancient text that can be vetted to be an ancient text that would specify. Otherwise, we don't get a name. And
right.
The way this is written in the Legend of the Jews, even in combat with the angels, plural, he was victorious.
Right. Yes. So yeah, I don't know the other times, but certainly that is one of them.
Well, this is interesting too, because like in Joshua and other places, it talks about the sons of Jacob having superhuman strength also.
Right.
Some of the, like Judah, and in the Joshua account, when we get to the at the Exodus,
right.
Actually before the Exodus, going back to the whole Joshua deal. Well, no, it's not Joshua. Joseph. When Joseph, when the house of Jacob go down to Egypt, and they don't recognize Joseph, and he starts messing with them. He's like, well,
right.
He keeps putting like his cup in their bag and all this stuff, and and Judah swears before he leaves to Jacob, no, on my life, I'll bring your son back and all this stuff. And in the Genesis account, you totally miss it. But in the Joshua account, Judah's like, oh yeah, dude. Because he thinks that Joseph is like, some kind of, Pharaoh prince or something. And he's like, yeah, you know what I could do to you? You think my brothers are tough. Like, he's bragging on his strength. Like, I once took on, these guys are like Samsons.
Yes, exactly. Story. Right. Yeah, they are considered mighty men without a doubt. Shimeon and Judah was said to be able to even roar, and it was only his family members that could calm him. And, Joseph, knowing that, was able to put his hand on his shoulder and calm him and relieve him of his power, so to speak. And so, yeah, he uses that knowledge to mess with them. And then his sons are also endowed. Joseph's sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, are also endowed because they are family, with similar superpower type strength and such to equal and to rival Judah. And so that is also brought forth in story. When we get to that part, it'll come out. But yeah, it is pretty cool how all that plays out
these are like
detail.
They're non-mutant X-Men kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
Right.
It's like the biblical, non-mutant superheroes. Yeah, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And they were well respected. The sons of Jacob, the 12 tribes, they were well respected. And then the story of them, slaughtering all the men of Shechem, that went forth and was widely known. And so they feared, that's why the Egyptians decided upon, after Joseph's death, to try to work them to death and to separate them from their wives so that they wouldn't bear offspring, and then to try to diminish them as a tribe and people.
Yeah. Did you catch the show that I just uploaded? I did a pre-recorded show with Dr. Judd Burton. That
I have not yet, but I do have it, and I did see it, and I will definitely check it out. But no, I did not get a chance yet.
I always enjoy talking with him. He's first of all, he's just a really cool guy.
Yeah, he's a great brother. Yeah,
awesome guy. But we have some of the best conversations whenever we get together. And one time he came up to the Dallas area here, and we went out to eat, and he's like, dude, yeah, because back in the day, he used to be quite a bit into martial arts, as was back in the 90s. And so he's like, dude, I've been doing a lot of study lately, and you ever like look into some of the martial arts, especially the ones that use weapons and stuff? I'm like, yeah, I did a little bit of that. And he goes, well, notice like in the katas and stuff, and the various routines, that some of the moves aren't very practical for fighting a 5 to 6 foot tall person. They're very sweet. It's more acrobatic and show when you do the various routines, and maybe that's what it evolved into, is just sort of a show routine. But he's like, if you take it further back, it could be that they were actually training to take out giants. Take out
to fight bigger.
Yeah, take out knees and groins and stuff.
Yeah.
As a much shorter, opponent to these things. And what else would the Israelites be doing in the wilderness for 40 years? Yes, we have the feasts and stuff that we get in Leviticus 23, but shortly after all the commandments are given, the narrative jumps ahead like 37 years or something like that. And all of a sudden we're getting ready to go on the land, and that the generation that came out is dying off, and the young ones are going in. He's like, what did they do out there? Israelites going all the way back to the founding. Clearly Abraham was a tough dude with the, I always maintain he's the original 300, like the movie, Sparta,
right.
Forget Gerard Butler. Abraham was one tough dude. So, they had, some really serious martial abilities. And, he thinks that they continued to train, and, maybe some of that was passed down, and some of the various members of the tribes were still practicing it by the time we get to the Exodus, and then that's what they were training for in the wilderness. But then we just did a study. I think it was this last virtual house church. It's like, notice that the weapons of warfare for Israel, yes, they did have martial arts training likely, and they did have swords and bows and arrows and stuff. But they would send the Levites out with trumpets and like harps to praise, like that.
Yes.
Wow, talk about a weapon.
Right.
Leading the army with praise. Wow.
Yes. The power of prayer.
Amen.
All right, brother.
All right.
Until next week.
See you
God
next
bless all. Good
See you
night.
guys. Bye.
Shalom all.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.